Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. We've got an absolutely massive task ahead of us today. We are going to distill over 11,000 years of incredibly dense, world-shaping Tyrian history into one single logical narrative. We're mapping out the cyclical epochs of a world that is just constantly caught between destruction and rebirth. And as you'll see, we're going to uncover how all of this might be laying the groundwork for a completely brand new era.
Okay, let's dive right into this. According to the ancient dragon Cunavong, the Tyrian universe didn't start off with planets and stars and galaxies. No, it started with just raw, chaotic magic known as the Void. Then, the mother dragon, Su-Wan, stepped in and brought literal order to that chaos by splitting the Void into 6 distinct domains of magic. It's a really beautiful creation story, right? But managing all that magic has turned out to be the single greatest struggle in Tyria's entire history.
So here is our roadmap to get through all these millennia. We'll start with the dawn of Tyria, then move into the human gods arrive, followed by the guild wars erupt. After that, we'll hit the return of elder dragons, transition into the age of Orin, and finally wrap up with uncharted futures for Tyria. All right, kicking things off with Chapter 1, the dawn of Tyria, focusing on the rise and slumber of the dragons. Let's wind the clock way back to 20,000 before the Exodus, or BE. That's when we see the earliest recorded dragon rise. These elder dragons basically wake up, consume all the magic in the entire world, and then just go back to sleep. And it was brutal. By 10,000 BE, this cycle completely wiped out the great giants. Facing total extinction, 5 elite ancient races, the Seers, Forgotten, Dwarves, Jotun, and Mursat, desperately banded together. It was a completely unprecedented alliance just to resist these dragons. And it actually bought them time, especially in 1680 BE, when the Forgotten managed to grant free will to the dragon champion Glint, who then helped hide these elder races from complete annihilation. But, survival definitely did not come cheap. To literally starve the dragons back to sleep, the Seers created the Bloodstones. These were massive, powerful artifacts designed to just suck up and hide the world's unspoiled magic. There was just one huge problem. The Mursat flat out refused to give up their magic to these stones. And that sparked a devastating, centuries-long war of betrayal between the Seers and the Mursat that nearly drove the Seers to extinction. So the magic was hidden, and the dragons did eventually go back to sleep, but that grand ancient alliance completely shattered. Moving on to Part 2, the human gods arrive, and how a totally new race reshapes the continents. Fast forward to 786 BE. This is a massive paradigm shift. The 6 gods bring humanity to the continent of Cantha. Because the ancient races were severely weakened, human expansion just rapidly overwrote the world map. They arrived in Or and Alona, and by 100 BE, they settled Ascalon, violently pushing the native Char up north. But humanity's rapid rise hit a wall in 1 BE. That's when the god Abaddon recklessly gifted magic straight back to the mortal races. Predictably, massive wars instantly broke out everywhere. The other gods had to step in, seal the magic away again, and strike Abaddon down, which actually turned his domain into the desolate crystal desert we know today. Following that massive tragedy, the gods packed up and left Tyria entirely in the year 0. Which brings us right into Chapter 3, the Guild Wars erupt, the era of continental conflict. Now, what's really interesting about this era is the sheer scale of the irony. Back in the year 100 after the Exodus, a volcano erupted and scattered those incredibly powerful bloodstones all across Tyria. For centuries, the human kingdoms of Ascalon, Krita, and Or fought these brutal, endless wars against each other just to control them. These were the original guild wars. But centuries of petty human squabbling literally vanished overnight in 1070 AE. Why? Because the Char, the very ones pushed north centuries prior, came back with a vengeance. They launched a devastating magical attack called the Searing. So the Guild Wars didn't end through some grand peace treaty. They ended abruptly because of absolute, overwhelming external destruction. 200. That is exactly how many years the legendary assassin Shiro Togachi, the guy who literally murdered the Emperor of Cantha, was dead and gone. Then, out of nowhere in late 1072 AE, he abruptly returns as this undead spirit and unleashes the terrifying affliction plague upon Cantha. It's just a grim reminder that in Tyrian history, peace is never guaranteed, and the past has a really terrifying habit of rising from the grave. And that brings us to Part 4, Return of Elder Dragons, where the apocalyptic cycle repeats itself. Just look at the overwhelmingly terrifying odds the heroes of Tyria suddenly faced. In 1120 AE, Primordus awakens, forcing entire subterranean races up to the surface. In 1165, Jormeg wakes up and plunges the north into a relentless 4-year blizzard. In 1219, Zedon physically raises the sunken nation of Ur right out of the ocean, which triggers a massive tsunami that completely drowns Lion's Arch. And then in 1320, Kralkatorrik takes flight and carves a massive corrupted crystal scar across the continent known as the Dragon Brand. It was just a relentless cascade of world-ending events. But unlike the ancient races who had to hide from the dragons, the modern races actually fought back. And the turning point is pretty shocking. 43. In 1328 AE, after taking some absolutely massive initial losses, the newly mustered multiracial military alliance known as the Pact took exactly 43 days to finally defeat the awakened jungle dragon, Mordramoth. 43 days. It proved that the unkillable ancient gods of Tyria could actually be slain. This sparks our 5th chapter, the Age of Aurene, and the breaking of the dragon cycle. And this brilliantly illustrates just how fast the world's ancient threats were completely dismantled. In 1329 AE, the crystal dragon Aurene is born. By 1332, she actually helps slay Kralkatorrik and ascends to become an elder dragon herself. In 1334, Primordus and Jormal literally wipe each other out in combat. And then, in 1335, the cycle comes full circle. The very first mother dragon, Suwan, falls to corruption and has to be stopped. So in less than a decade, a cycle that lasted 10,000 years was totally neutralized. To bring this massive narrative arc to a peaceful, definitive close, Aurene departs the physical realm in 1336 AE. She takes her place in the Mists, that proto-magical dimension between worlds, acting as the singular conduit for Tyria's magical balance. For the first time, the dragons are no longer a threat. But, as you can probably guess, this peaceful resolution leaves behind a massive, fascinating vacuum of power. Which perfectly sets up our final chapter, Uncharted Futures for Tyria. We are looking at old artifacts and entirely new frontiers. Almost the exact second the Dragon Era ends, mysterious new threats start pouring in from the Mists. In 1336, demonic Cryptus forces invade Tyria. This sets off a massive political shift in 1337, where an entity named Pytha overthrows her ruler to become the Midnight King of the demon realm of Neos. To combat these wildly unpredictable threats, the mortal races are forced to adapt, forming the Tyrian Alliance, an unprecedented global defense pact. The geopolitical shape of the world is basically changing overnight. So the crucial point is this. The rapid-fire cliffhangers currently unfolding right now in 1303 AE are completely unrelated to the Elder Dragons. The ancient titans suddenly resurface. The incredibly dangerous Scepter of Ur is just lost to the Mists. The brilliant and frankly morally ambiguous Inquest mounts a highly secretive expedition to a location called Kastora. For lore fans, these deeply political, highly magical events are heavily hinting at an entirely new era of conflict. It is perfectly setting the stage for what a lot of us hope is the groundwork for potential Guild Wars 3. We've seen how Tyria survived the ancient dragons, the human gods, the devastating original Guild Wars, and a modern apocalypse. But right now, the canvas is totally blank. With the dragon cycle completely shattered and incredibly dangerous artifacts lost to the Mists, what dark, uncharted era awaits Tyrion next? The cycle might be over, but the story is clearly just beginning. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer of Tyrian history. Keep your eyes on the lore, you guys, because the future is wide open.